got to get to the underlying reasons why we have them. We have a lot of people come out of the services, have particular issues. There's been 75 million, funnily enough, out of the fines that banks have had to pay for some of their dodgy dealing under the LIBOR fines, is going towards support, particularly of armed services. But I've been a magistrate for 10 years, and the very key thing that I see amongst a lot of youngsters suffering from mental health issues at 21 is because they've had long-term skunk cannabis use. And I'm afraid too many people say, oh, it's only a bit of cannabis. But this is a real driver that I've actually seen on the ground. But we are very much focused as a Conservative Party on mental health issues. We know there's more money that needs to be found for it. And we are absolutely committed to doing everything that's necessary to solve mental health issues.
I do have some plans regarding this issue. Thanet has been used as a dumping ground for, it could be mental health patients, it could be paedophiles, it could be children's homes, but generally we're seen as a cheap offloading of personnel into our community, and where it's at full stretch. They need to be spread around the country so it's evenly distributed between other councils, whether they're rich or poor. And in fact, they're much better cared for in more wealthier communities, and they have to take the burden of mental health as well, and the other issues that we really stand for, especially putting paedophiles and children's homes in the same street as in with Cliftonville.
In the last 5 years, NHS spending has been protected, but I tell you what hasn't been protected: mental health, and what else hasn't been protected: social care. What we've seen is these the services with the NHS being stretched further and further because cutbacks are being made by local councils to services like CAMS, other mental health services, maybe at the Beacon, and also through social care. What we need is a big change, and what Labour is offering is that we are going to bring mental health services within the NHS and social care within the NHS and make it an integrated structure. The big benefits that would mean is it would bring savings which can be reinvested, but more importantly it would stop mental health services, in particular due to your question, being the poor relation of the NHS. I think it would be a huge improvement and would mean that we get the proper funding and people aren't referred all the time. I mean, I deal particularly with CAMS and younger people suffering mental health. As a county council, I deal with the agencies quite a lot. And it is very frustrating to have somebody bounce between different organisations, from KCC education to children's social care, to mental health care, to the NHS. It's very frustrating to see that happening. If we had an integrated structure where mental health and social care were all together with the NHS, it would be good for the people working in the service and good for the people receiving the service.
Well, I definitely think social care is one of the top priorities for this area. There's so many deprived. We seem to have the highest rates for everything. Child poverty, drunkenness, drug abuse. I mean, everything seems to be such a high rate. So we do need something to combat this. Where you would start probably would be with bringing more employment in again, so people have got a sense of self-worth, and they can, and assisted places for mentally handicapped. Well, there are some local companies that are brilliant at that. I mean, I know our local Asda's was up the road are really good with their employment of mentally handicapped and different people, which is excellent, and that should be spread. And I think it comes back to the bigger community, doesn't it? We all need to look out for each other. It's not just the mentally handicapped, it's the elderly as well. I mean, loneliness is a big concern of mine, especially in the elderly. Not just the elderly. I mean, I'm on my own. Other people on their. I know lots of people move here on their own. But social media is brilliant nowadays for getting people together, so that's really good.
Yeah, I think if you examine all the parties, Liberal Democrats have got the strongest position on mental health issues in the country. We've said that we have a fund for supporting young people, children, etc., with mental health issues. We've said as part of our manifesto now that mental health issues should be treated the same as physical health issues. So where you have waiting lists, where if you go to casualty with a mental health issue, there should be a protocol that you are not turned away, etc. And that as we go forward, and we have a greater percentage of our community now who are going to be suffering from mental illness at the end of their lives, so things like dementia and Alzheimer's and those kind of things, that they are given the same facilities as you would do if you had a physical ailment. So it's absolutely core to our approach to the NHS and sets us apart. If you see the actual criteria we've laid down for mental health issues, I was at a MenCap hustings last week in Cliftonville, and up there listened to my voice campaign. And we were explaining to them there about our role is, and it's quite clear there's a big gap between our position and the other parties, because we've said that mental health is an emerging issue. It's going to get bigger because of what I've already mentioned, and as such we've got to recognise that.
Mental health is a big issue in Thanet. The statistics show that there are more people living in Thanet than anywhere else in Kent who have got mental health problems, yet the service that they rely on has been cut back massively, and I'm all in favour of a lot more spending on mental health. It's the part of the NHS. It's like a Cinderella service. It's one of those areas where people don't like talking about mental health. It's only recently really that people have got the confidence to talk about mental health, especially people who have suffered from mental health problems. And it's always been a taboo area that nobody talked about, and probably because of that, the level of funding was never as high, because people didn't like to say, well, look, I've had mental health problems, the service wasn't very good, it was underfunded. And it's only now that very brave people are standing up and talking about their personal circumstances that mental health is coming onto the agenda. And I think that's a fantastically brave thing for people to do, to break the taboos and to talk about a health issue that's been brushed under the carpet for years. And they do need more money, and certainly I see every day as a counsellor, a lot of the people I help in my surgeries have got mental health problems or learning disabilities or issues such as that, which makes it pretty hard for them to get by in life, and they do need all the support that they can get, and they do need professional help from the NHS. So I really think it's a great thing to do, is to campaign for more money for mental health, and it's time that the NHS recognise just how widespread the problem is and just how desperate some people can be because they're not getting the service they need. And I mean, I've met people with members of their family who have got mental health problems, and when people are sectioned, it's often miles away from where their friends and their family live because there isn't the facilities. And I've had heartbreaking issues when I've worked with constituents where their son or their daughter is 100 miles away because there's nothing in Thanet, or what there is available in Thanet or Canterbury or anywhere else is already oversubscribed. So it's a big issue, and it needs to be addressed.